friends, welcome back to another episode of My Lemonade Life. Today we are going to learn how to can chicken. I know it sounds daunting, experimental, dangerous, all the fun things that we've heard over the years. I remember when I was younger and I was terrified of a pressure cooker or a pressure canner because I remember the stories of my grandma saying that the lid flew off and hit the ceiling and the stuff boiled over and all the things that used to happen. Canners used to explode. But I think we've moved beyond that. We have the technology now to make things a little bit better. So we are going to learn how to pressure can chicken. So you cannot use, in my opinion and in the FDA's opinion and everybody else's opinion, you cannot use a water bath canner to can chicken. So what we're going to learn here today is how to pressure can chicken. So I have a Presto canner, which I really love, but there are lots of canners on the market, so you can kind of take a look around if you don't have a pressure canner already and see what you want to do. If you think you're going to love pressure canning, then you're going to want to probably buy one that's big enough to double stack so that you can do twice as much in the same amount of time. But the other day I did a video and I showed that we got some chicken for 97 cents a pound for the boneless, skinless breast. And so that's what we are going to can today. I'm going to show you how I cut it. I've already pre-cut some of this, but I'm going to show you how I cut it to make it fit in the jars how I like it. So I'm going to cut four strips, and then I cut about 4 times the opposite direction, maybe 5. These are big breasts, so we'll do one more. And then the pieces end up to be about this size. So it's about a 2 by 1, maybe a little less than 1. But you can cut it however you want to. I like big chunks so that when I pour it into the pan to reheat it, I can do whatever I want with it. I can make it shredded. I use it a lot for shredded tacos. So I like to shred it. So sometimes I use bigger pieces than this. Sometimes I'll just cut it into quarters and stick it in the jar. But for all intents and purposes today, we are cutting it smaller so that we can fit more in the jar. And it's so easy, you guys. Once you get your canner set up, and the instructions will be with your canner, or if you've canned before, then you already know this. Just remember, it needs to be a pressure canner. So I cut my chicken into little pieces, and then I'm going to, we're gonna pack the jars. You guys, it's so easy. If you can boil water, you can can chicken. It's just super easy. Sometimes we call it ugly chicken though, because it looks like a science project a little bit when it comes out of the can, or out of the jar. When it's all cooked, it's got, you know, it just looks like a science project. What can I say? And the first time I put it on the shelf, it was kind of scary because I didn't know how it was going to taste, what it was going to, you know, if it was going to be safe. And so I always, in the beginning, I always boiled it for like 10 minutes before I would use it. Now I know that I can just reheat it because I know what I'm doing, and it's going to be ready. So I'm packing it into the jars, you guys. We're going to do an inch headspace in this. I probably should get my book out just to make sure I'm telling you the right things. I've done it so many times, I think I know. So we're going to leave about an inch headspace in this jar. And this is called raw pack, and so we're not cooking it before we put it in the jars because the pressure cooker is going to cook it. My jars are clean because they came out of the dishwasher the last time I used them. So I don't wash and boil my jars again because I know that the temperature of the pressure cooker is going to bring them up to wherever it will kill whatever's in the jar, as far as any germs or things like that. And that's one of the reasons we pressure can. So this chicken is delicious. We will do some things showing what you can do with canned chicken. So if you're new to canning chicken, feel free to ask questions. Feel free to do your own research if you want to. But one thing I like about canning my own is I know what's in it. Nothing, sometimes I put salt, but otherwise there's nothing but salt in my chicken. It's just regular chicken with salt. And then I also love that I can prepare for the future at 97 cents a pound, you know? So one of these jars usually ends up weighing about 14 ounces by the time I pack it. So that's almost a pound of chicken. When my grandkids come over, we can do tacos with, we can get away with 1 jar. 2 is better, but if it's a crunch or a pinch, then we can do 1. And it's just healthier. And guess what, you guys? This lasts for a really long time. I have meat on my shelf that's been there for years, and we pull it out every now and then and eat it. I mean, we rotate, but we do pull out and just make sure that it's, we check the seals and make sure that everything's still good. And it is. So I feel like it's a good investment to buy things on sale, can them, and have them on your pantry shelf. When we do the recipes calling for canned chicken, you can use home bottled chicken. They call it canned, but it's bottled. But everybody calls it canned, so I call it canned. So we've got these packed, like up to the 1-inch line. We like to leave just the bottom of the ring empty, above the ring empty. And then, so can it up, or put the chicken in up to the bottom. And then, you guys, we are going to, this is probably going to make about 8 jars. 8 jars. So this is $8 worth of chicken, and we've got at least, if you have a large family, at least 4 meals, and sometimes 8 meals, depending on what you do with it. You can use this in a casserole. You can use it in just about any dish that you would normally use chicken in. Okay. So let me set this aside, and I'll show you how easy this is. So I like to do it for easy meal prep, you guys, because when I had a lot of kids at home, I would just pull a jar of chicken off the shelf and make dinner. I could make a pasta dish or a casserole or anything that required shredded chicken. You can use with this jar of chicken. And so that's one of the reasons I like to have canned chicken. And then another is the cost effectiveness, of course, and then also time. When you're meal prepping, the time that it doesn't take to cook chicken because you've got it already cooked. That's a big time saver in our world. Okay, so I'm gonna put about a half a teaspoon salt. I don't always salt, and you don't have to salt. It's not part of the preservation. It's just part of the, I'm gonna dump this in a little thing so it's easier. But I use canning salt. Canning salt is clear. It doesn't make the water cloudy, and so you can find this in the canning section in your stores. And I'm just doing it so I can scoop a little bit easier. Okay, so a half teaspoon on top. And as this cooks, it bubbles, and so the salt will go through. It doesn't need to be stirred in. Okay, and then I'm gonna just kind of go through. If you add, I don't add liquid. The chicken makes its own liquid, and sometimes it doesn't cover it all the way to the top, and it's fine. It doesn't matter. So we get a lot of the air bubbles out here. So this is a little debubbler. And so you just kind of mush it around and kind of poke and see if you can get everything so there's not as much air, so that it can pressurize easily. Okay, for years and years and years, if you're familiar with canning, I just found out, you guys, recently, I've been still doing it, we used to have to put our lids in hot water to soften the seal. That is not necessary anymore. They've changed what they use to make the seals, and so you don't have to soften the seals anymore, which takes out a whole step, because now you just put the lids on and then slip the rings on around them, and they're good to go, instead of having to have them in a hot water bath on the stove, getting them all ready and everything. Okay, so those should be pretty much packed in, debubbled, whatever you want to call it. And it's got the salt. And now I'm gonna, The next thing that we want to make sure we do, because chicken is greasy and because we want to make sure we get a tight seal, this is a little bit of white vinegar, and I'm going to wipe the rims real quick and make sure that there's nothing that could impede the seal. Now, I've checked these jars for chips or anything before we did it, because sometimes if you have a chip in the jar, the lid won't seal. Or if you have a little crack in the jar, then the jar will break. And so I don't want that to happen. So I'm just real quick gonna do this. You guys, the thing that I love about this is I do it one time. So I've got 8 meals here, and it's gonna take me probably overall 2, maybe at the most 2.5 hours to get this all done today. And I'm just doing one batch. Sometimes I do 3 or 4, and I, can all day. But the nice thing about canning too is you don't have to stand and watch it. You have 75 minutes of processing that you have to stay home. You can get some other tasks done. So it makes it really time efficient. Okay, so I've put this little lid on, and you can see the seal. Let me come up close. Someday I'll have 2 cameras. So you can see the seal, and we're just gonna pop that on, and then we've got the ring, and we're gonna just finger tighten it. We're not gonna crank it, we're just gonna finger tighten it. And that gives the air a way to I call it express, but to come out. Otherwise, if we clamp those lids on too tight, then the air can't come out when it's pressurizing, and the jars will break, okay? So you just put it on and finger tighten it. Just, it should move easily like this. You don't want it to, and then, tighten it back. Don't turn it like this and then leave it where it can rattle. Just want to tighten it. There we go. Okay, so I'm gonna really quick do these, and then we are gonna put them in the canner and get started. I have a son that's a very picky eater, and I gave him a jar of this one time. He's an adult. He's still a picky eater. But he was like, "Mom, where'd you get that chicken?" And I said, "Well, I canned it." And he's like, "That is the best chicken I've ever had." And he made chicken salad with it. He just loved it on everything. And then, let's see, we're gonna do this. I'm gonna start getting the canner warmed up. We've got 8 jars. Okay, so I think my canner will hold another level. So if I had more chicken, I could make another 8 jars, and these would all can at the same time. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the canner. So I actually have about 1.5 inches, 2 inches of water in here. I put 2 gallons, 8 cups. Wait, 8 cups times 2. I put a ½ gallon. I might need a little bit more. So you want it to be about close to 2 inches thick, or 2 inches deep. So this goes up to my knuckle, like right there. And so I'm gonna assume that's about, that's about 2 inches. Okay, you don't want too much water because you don't want it to cover, the jars when you put them in. Okay, now we have a rack, and this is gonna come with your canner. And it has these little knobby things. So those little bubble things are gonna go upside down, so it kind of creates a shelf. Okay, and then we are gonna put the jars in. Okay, so now we have all the jars in, and I'm gonna put the lid on, and we're gonna vent the canner, and I'll explain that in a minute. Okay, so this part right here is called the vent, and then this over here is the gauge. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna vent the canner, which means we're gonna let this, we're gonna let the canner heat up, and then we're gonna let this steam for 10 minutes. So when it gets a steady stream, we're gonna let it stream for 10 minutes. So we're gonna set the timer, but I'm not gonna do it until it starts to steam, okay? And then that's called venting the canner. And after that, we will bring it up to pressure, and then our chicken will start to can. Okay, so you can hear that the canner has started to boil. So that means pretty soon this valve is going to steam. And that's what we're waiting for in order to vent the canner. Okay, I think you can see the steam, but I'm actually going to hold a jar up behind it. So you can kind of see the steam there, that it is steaming. And then this valve in the front, which is, you can see some water coming out right now, as soon as it gets to the right temperature, it is going to pop up and seal, and that seals the canner. There we go. I couldn't have asked for a better shot. So now we're going to let it vent for 10 minutes. Okay, it's been 10 minutes, so the canner is fully vented. So now I am going to grab the pressure regulator, and I'm going to use a hot pad. So this is what the pressure regulator looks like. And I'm going to pop that on to that valve that is venting. And the reason I'm using a hot pad is because I don't want to get a steam burn. And so now that's on. And because that's on and blocking that valve, now the canner is going to start to rise in pressure. So we are going to let it rise. I am at sea level, so I'm going to let it rise to 10 pounds, which is right here. And it usually hovers right in between 10 and 11. So check for your sea level, or for your altitude, to see what pressure you need to be canning at. So what we're going to do is we're going to watch this until it gets to 10, and then we're going to start the timer for the processing. So there's a lot of little pre-steps to actually processing the chicken, and that's kind of what takes the most time, if anything, because you have to kind of watch the clock for those first little bit, you know, the 10-minute, the venting, the getting it up to vent, and then the 10 minutes for venting, and then getting it up to pressure, and then once we get to pressure, then we can just leave it for 75 minutes pretty much. Okay, we are up to pressure, and you can tell that we also have this little rattler over here, and it kind of rattles steadily, and so that means we're right at pressure too. So now we are going to set the timer for 75 minutes because we're canning pints. If you're doing quarts, you need to process for 90 minutes. Come back every now and then and check the pressure to make sure that I'm kind of in the range and make sure that my temperature's adjusted just right. Also, your canner may not have a gauge. If it doesn't, this is called a weighted pressure regulator, and this is the rocking motion it should have when it's at the right pressure. It shouldn't be, you know, boom, 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 boom. It should just be gently rocking, steadily. Okay, so we're going to leave it for 75 minutes and then we'll be back. Okay, time is just about up. So we are going to turn off the burner. This is stayed at a steady 10 to 11 pounds of pressure the whole time. Okay, so what we're going to watch for now is for this button to go down. That means that the canner itself has depressurized. At that point in time, and not before, then you can lift this off. And you can take the lid off. But not until this button goes down. And you can't force it down, it has to go down by itself. And then when it goes down, that means the canner's depressurized, and you can remove it. You can remove the pressure regulator, and then unscrew the top of the canner. So I'm going to pull one of these jars out. This is a jar lifter, and it actually makes it easy to grab the jars. This goes around the neck of the jar and makes it easy to lift them, so that you're not squeezing the sides of the jar.
and it keeps the pressure sealed. This is what it looks like when it comes out of the canner. You can see that it made its own juice. It's still bubbling in there because it's super, super hot. And then the one thing that you do is you listen for the top to ping. Sometimes, and it's a very distinct ping, you'll hear it. And sometimes it happens while they're actually in the canner. And it makes the lid go from a dome, a little bit of a dome in the middle, to flat or just a tiny bit concave. And that's when you know you have a good seal on the jars. Did you hear that? It was like that little pop. So that's how it seals when it's done. We are gonna leave these now for 24 hours. We're not gonna move them. We put them on a towel or a mat. I use a dish drying mat. So I just stick them on a dish drying mat and leave them here for 24 hours. And then when they're finished, we're gonna unscrew the ring lid. Okay, so after 24 hours, you can unscrew the ring lid and you can wipe around the edges. I usually wait a little bit longer and then I see if I can hand lift it. If I can hand lift it, then that means it didn't seal properly. And you just use it real quick. Put it in the fridge and use it real quick. And then also, if you have a jar that didn't seal, you can reprocess it, or you can just use it real quick because it is cooked. And so just put it in the fridge and use it within the next couple of days. I hope you've loved this video of us canning chicken and that it'll add something to your pantry. It's something quick and easy that you can use for meal prep and other things. I'm getting ready to head out on a plane right now, and so I will see you again next time. If you have loved this video, go ahead and hit the like button and subscribe, and then you'll be here for the next time when we show you what to do with all this chicken. See you next time.